Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Agahi with Warisa Zainab. Everyone experiences stress. It's part of being alive. Stress is known as a response to a stress. Stress is known as a response to a threat that you come across, whereas anxiety is the response to that stress that you experience. They may sound similar, although they are quite different. But if you learn how to manage stress and anxiety, then you can have a lot of control in your daily life. To discuss this topic further and to understand what stress and anxiety really is and how we can adapt to certain techniques in our daily life to make changes. Today we've got a special guest with us, Ms. Farhana Maleque, who has joined us from London. She is a psychological well-being practitioner and she is also the outreach manager for a faith-based mental health charity called Inspirited Minds. Farhana, welcome to the show. Can you hear me? Assalamu alaikum, Farhana. We'll take a short break just to fix the technical problem that we're experiencing, and we'll join you back shortly. Keep watching. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Agahi. Today we will be discussing how to manage stress, and we're going to talk about certain management techniques that we can apply in our daily life to manage anxiety and anxiety related disorders. Today we have on the show Ms. Farhana Maleque, who is a psychological well-being practitioner, and she is also the outreach manager for Inspirited Minds. Inspirited Minds is a faith-based mental health charity, and we'll learn more about it from Farhana. Farhana, welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How are you today?
Yeah, not too bad. A bit stressed, which is
I
convenient
can
for our talk.
imagine. Yeah, a little bit of technical difficulties, but that's completely normal. We all experienced it, and that must have caused some amount of stress. So, talking about stress and anxiety, Farhana, I want you to first introduce yourself and tell us about the work that you do with Inspirited Minds.
Yeah, so as Warisa put it nicely, so my name is Farhana Maleque. I'm a psychological wellbeing practitioner and I also volunteer as an outreach manager for Inspirited Minds. So what I do as an outreach manager is go into different Muslim communities such as mosques and the general community, schools and universities to run mental health workshops alongside the Islamic perspective on it too. So that's what I do, and I also manage a team of volunteers, alhamdulillah. Outside of Inspirited Minds, I work to support individuals going through mild to moderate symptoms of depression and anxiety and stress.
That's very helpful because I think our community is desperately in need of an organization that doesn't only provide help with mental health issues, but also caters the needs that are specific to the Muslim population in UK. So, Farhana, how long have you been working in this organization?
So for Inspirited Minds, I've been working since 2017, alhamdulillah.
Okay, mashallah, that's been long. And how long has it been still this organization has like been working in the UK?
So, Inspirited Minds was founded in 2014 by three individuals, Selena, Sharina, and Talat, who found that there was a gap in the mental health system where a lot of Muslims weren't accessing mental health support or seeking help. So, they carried out a survey and found that a lot of Muslims don't access these services because of the stigma, because they're not culturally adapted to their needs, their religious needs. And so they founded Inspirited Minds, which is, alhamdulillah, has grown a lot in terms of providing counseling, in terms of providing support online through listening support and Ask IM, which is currently established now on our website. We've also expanded in terms of sending out newsletters that incorporates both mental health from an Islamic perspective as well as the Western perspective as well. And also we've got the outreach team and research team that evaluates what we do. So alhamdulillah, it's been growing. We're all volunteers, including the founders and the CEOs. So a lot
Mashallah.
of people who ask us, how do you guys run? You guys look really well established. Alhamdulillah, all of our
Yeah.
volunteers have such big hearts, and I don't think we could do anything around these areas of mental health and supporting the community without them. So I just would like to make a
Mashallah.
big add to all of them in terms of their success in this life and the hereafter. I mean,
I mean. So, Farhana, another challenge that we face in our community is that of language barrier. There are so many people in the community who need professional mental health support, but they feel that they are unable to communicate because most of the therapists and counselors that we have who work for NHS, they may not be bilingual. So, how does
mhm.
Inspirited Mind helps those individuals whose first language is not English?
So with our work, we are still trying to work on translating our materials into different languages. In terms of
Okay.
our counselors, um, we have a range of counselors from different backgrounds. So they have the awareness of the cultural and spiritual needs within therapy. However, I feel like there is still much more progress that we need to do in terms of having an incorporation of languages in therapy. I'm not 100% sure if that is delivered, but it is in the pipeline in terms of delivering it in different languages. And in terms of material, we are definitely planning to do that or have materials that are in different languages, inshallah.
That sounds really fantastic. So, jumping into the topic, we are going to talk about stress and anxiety. And stress is like something which almost everyone experiences. It's a sign of being alive. But some people are good at coping with it, whereas there are some people who really struggle. And some people resort to healthy coping strategies, whereas some people resort to unhealthy practices. So, first of all, Farhana, tell our viewers what stress really is.
So there isn't a unanimous definition of stress, but a lot of people
Mm,
can say that it is a physiological or psychological response to situations or events that they don't have control over. So it can also be a response in which there is a lot of pressure towards that person and their ability to cope. So if the demand of the pressure is too much and their ability to cope or their coping strategies is low, then they're going to feel that
Mm.
pressure. So it's important to find that balance and be mindful of the coping strategies that could help manage that pressure and that demand. And as you mentioned correctly, everyone has different levels of coping strategies and how to cope with stress. So, for example, for myself, I think I have a small stress bucket, which is a metaphor that
Yeah.
we use to identify what stresses are happening in our life at this moment and what coping strategies do we have to minimize how much pressure we put on ourselves or how much pressure we feel. So it's about how we respond to that stressor and what we have available to respond to that pressure and that stress. So yeah, I hope I answered the question.
Talking about that metaphor, stress bucket, what about those individuals for whom there is no outlet and it tends to like fill to its maximum and then it reaches a point where they can no longer control it and it goes out of hand and then it comes out in the form of physical or other psychological ailments or issues. Why does that happen?
So it is about knowing when you're starting to get stressed, and sometimes it's quite hard to identify when one is getting stressed. Maybe they are habitually stressed, and it's
Uh-huh.
quite hard to be aware of that before it escalates. So it's important to know physically what happens to your body when you're feeling stressed. Do you get tension? Do you feel like you're overworking? Do you feel like you're overthinking? Is your sleep routine disrupted? Are you eating well? Are you eating daily, regularly? Thinking about those things and spotting the signs beforehand before it escalates. As the stress bucket mentions, the water can overflow, and then you can start developing responses where you snap at people, or you overwork, or you resort to unhealthy coping strategies. So it's important to be mindful about how we respond in these situations and what's happening to our body. Is there any physical changes happening to our body? Um, yeah.
Yeah. What about those people, Farhana, who are not aware that they are experiencing stress and they are not dealing with it in a positive way? What symptoms should we look out for?
So there are physical changes that you can notice, and these changes can be quite hard to be mindful of, and that's why it's important to reflect on, like, just take a
Mm.
moment and just observe your body. How is it feeling at that moment? So some people might feel a bit of tension in their shoulders. They might feel a headache coming on. They might feel like pins and needles on their head or something like that.
Mm.
They might feel like they're overthinking a lot, or they are
Yeah.
behaving in a way that they don't have time for pleasurable activities, so they're overworking. Or again, as I mentioned, their sleep routine is disrupted, so they're not sleeping well, or they're sleeping too late, or they keep waking up. If they're eating their meals on time, thinking about these things, if you start seeing a change in your day-to-day life that hasn't happened
Uh-huh.
before, then perhaps thinking about what is happening at that moment in time that's disrupting that pattern, that daily routine. And of
Mm.
course, when you do feel stress, I feel like everyone knows that there is something that's happening, but they just
Yeah.
can't pinpoint
Yeah.
what it is, and that could be the hardest part to kind of process. Um, but most of the time, physical changes in your body are the first things that you will notice.
It sounds like stress has a really great impact on your physical body as well as your overall well-being. And you mentioned some of the symptoms that people may experience, like tension, headache, or tightness in the shoulder muscles. What about psychological issues? Can stress lead to psychological disorders or anxiety disorders?
Yeah, so if you are exposed to stresses for a long period of time, that can lead to developing anxiety or low mood, so depression. And when we do feel stress, we tend to activate a system called the fight or flight system, and that
Yeah.
releases hormones to either um, approach a threat or a perceived threat. And not sure if everyone's heard of the hormone adrenaline. So that runs through our
Mm,
bodies. So the typical
yeah.
symptoms would be heart racing fast, getting breathless, getting tunnel vision, rushing, your blood rushing to your limbs. So you might feel like you've got a burst of energy. You might notice that you're
Mm,
not as hungry as you were before. So noticing those signs, and if you chronically go experience stress for a long period of time, that can have an impact on your physical health. So high blood
right.
pressure, um, and other ailments as well. But anxiety and low mood could be as a result of chronic stress, and that's why it's important to catch the stress or anything that is making you feel like you're losing control or not having as much control early on before it escalates.
Fair enough. Stress and anxiety kind of sound similar to people, but they're two different things. So, what's the major difference between them?
So stress is more the perceived ability of coping with a demand or a pressure. So as you mentioned, everyone has different coping strategies and abilities in how they manage different stresses. All of us are very unique in that manner.
Yeah.
With anxiety and stress, they're very natural emotions and experiences. If we didn't have any of them, then I don't think we would be as human.
Mm,
But it's more around Anxiety is more around having a sense of fear or worry about a particular object or a particular situation or event. However, if you are consistently worried or stressed about the situation and it impacts your daily functioning to a point it impairs your relationships or your employment or your work, your private and leisure activities, social activities, if it impairs or impacts these different arenas in your life, then that's something to address quicker rather than later.
mhm.
So they are similar and they are also different as well. But I also want to reassure everyone that it's very natural to feel stressed and anxious.
Some people, Farhana, they have really stressful jobs. People, especially during this day and age when people have a lot of pressure, those who are working as frontline workers, they're under a lot of stress and they may not even get a chance to kind of de stress or take time out for themselves to relax. What do you think they should do? What
So
advice would you give to these professionals?
that's a really important question for our key workers and anyone, in fact, when they're going through stresses, is self-care. Now, that
Mm,
is one thing that we have control over. And when an individual feels stressed, they feel like they don't have the coping skills or strategies to manage that stressor. But when we look at it as a whole, and if anyone wants to look at how much stress they experience and how they cope with it, a stress bucket is an activity that you can use to identify your stress levels and what coping strategies that you've used in the past and that you have right now. So I would say self care is an important area to focus on. And what that involves is having a routine in place. So your sleep, wake, and sleep cycle. So what time do you sleep and what time do you wake up? Having a routine, a consistent routine in your sleep cycle. What time do you eat? Having a consistent routine in what time you eat. And also including pleasurable activities in your day to day life as well. Do something that you enjoy away from that stressor, and that disconnects you from that stressor and gives you that space to really breathe. And also think about the other necessary activities that you need to do, because if you don't address those necessary activities like bills or
yes.
deadlines, then that could build up more anxiety and stress. So it's important to address them and schedule it into your week and not all in one go. And your routine is a part of your self-care. So as I mentioned, your sleep, your eating, your exercise, these are all really important. Brushing your teeth, having a shower. If we're too focused on that stressor or our anxiety, then that can impact
Mm.
in terms of how we function day to day. So self-care is, I think, the first step to address any form of stress or anxiety.
To all the viewers out there who are watching this program live, if you want to share any feedback, would you like to make a comment or ask Farhana anything, please call in our studio or you can leave a message on our Facebook Hidayat TV page. Farhana, you mentioned the symptoms of stress. What are the symptoms when someone is experiencing anxiety? Just to
So
get a better understanding.
Yeah, sure. So symptoms of anxiety can be physical, it can
Okay.
be emotional as well, and thoughts. So I'm going to focus on physical because I know that in the South Asian community and many communities as well, they present more physically in terms of going to the GP and complaining about physical symptoms when in actual fact it's an underlying mental health condition or difficulty. So some of the symptoms are get a fast heart rate, so your heart beats
Mm.
fast. When you're feeling anxious, you might notice feeling like you're not as hungry, so you lose your appetite. You may notice getting headaches, tunnel vision, breathlessness. You may feel like your blood is running through your body, so you might feel more energy on your arms and legs. Um, those are the main common symptoms, and tension in the shoulders as well. So because the adrenaline from the anxiety is moving around your body, it's preparing your body to act in terms of protecting you from a threat. And this system that's activated is was built in within us to help us protect ourselves basically. So we need to do
Yeah.
something with this adrenaline. Are we going to just retain it within ourselves and just keep ourselves sat down, or are we going to do something about it either through exercise to use up that adrenaline? So these physical symptoms are most of the common symptoms that we would observe when someone experiences anxiety.
We hear a lot of mental health professionals and even physical health professionals recommending exercise as a tool to manage stress, anxiety, and just for overall well being. I would like to ask you, Farhana, does exercise and diet play a really vital role in our well being?
Exercise and what was
Proper
this?
diet, like a healthy lifestyle. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Exercise is such a therapeutic way of managing mental health difficulties or any other stresses. I mentioned earlier, it gives you that break from thinking about the stressor. That's one thing. You want to switch your mind
Mm,
off that. And with
yeah.
exercise, it releases the feel good hormones. So it makes you feel
Hmm.
good. That's another one. The third
Yeah.
reason why exercise is important is because it circulates the blood around your body, and that in itself can help improve your bodily functions. You want to circulate the nutrients, the oxygen around the vital organs so you can function properly. And diet also is really important in terms of improving your mood and feeling good. So let's say for example, eating junk food every day. That's
Yeah.
going to make you feel quite sluggish. It's going to make you feel quite demotivated and not wanting to do much, making you probably want to rest more and sleep more, and then you don't feel as
Mm,
productive. And that can play a part in how we think about, oh, I can't do this, I'm too tired,
yeah.
and then that cycle of being deactivated. And what I mean by deactivated is not feeling bothered or not feeling like you have enough energy to do certain activities. So then that cycle of not doing the activities, feeling like you can't do it, and feeling quite lethargic and tired and depressed and anxious as a consequence of that can have an impact. So it's important to take care of yourself in terms of having your 5 fruits and vegetables a day. So it gives you that energy, and also exercising and incorporating that in your day to day week. And I think the recommended exercise is it 150 minutes per week, and that could be
Okay.
brisk walking, it could be yoga, it could be something that gets your body moving, especially for older adults as well, which
Yeah.
can be quite being quite passive and sedentary can be quite common in the older generation. So it's important to have your exercise in place in your week and also be mindful of your diet.
This reminds me of an interesting research I came across that said that women generally who walk for more than 2 hours a week, they kind of prevent themselves from getting coronary heart disease. So it does kind of prove that exercise does play an important role in our health and physical health and psychological well-being. But unfortunately for Hannah, I mean, this whole year, most of the people were stuck inside the four walls of their homes. Leisure centers were closed. People couldn't access the gym, and it's kind of difficult to get into that routine of doing exercise at home. What advice would you give to people who are struggling with this?
That is really hard because your home is the place where you rest and you chill out. And
Yeah.
I've noticed this myself. Exercising at home is quite difficult. And doing like online classes is quite difficult as well because no one is around you. They're through an online TV screen or laptop screen. You can exercise through other ways, such as, getting out of bed, walking up the stairs if you've got stairs, pacing perhaps could be a form of exercise. Cleaning is a form of exercise as well. Doing chores around the house is exercise. Just moving your body somehow, even if it's a stretch, that would count as exercise or movement. In terms of not staying away, sorry, changing your body position. If you can engage in online exercises, whether if it's through YouTube or Zoom classes or doing something with your friends to motivate yourself, that would be really important.
Farhana, we have a caller online. I'll just take this call.
Sure.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Welcome to the show. Is there anything you would like to ask our guest?
Is it Varisa?
Yes, this is Varisa speaking. Welcome to the show.
This is Dr. Jafar Qureshi.
Lovely to hear from you, Dr. Jafar. How are you?
MashaAllah, I'm so happy that you're engaging the future of my subject, Farhana. And with Abu Bakr, who is also aware of this good work they are doing. But I wanted to ask you, the yoga is a rather controversial subject, and there's been a lot of books written on it by Indian psychologists and psychiatrists who believe there are better ways for Muslim clients to achieve the sense of balance and contentment in Islam through muraqabah and zikr. So I'm imploring this generation of Farhanas and you to find solutions for great culture and civilization within the remit of Islamic psychology. It's just a point to make, and I thank you for this wonderful program every Saturday. I look forward to watching it, and I hope to be with you again, inshallah. So any comments on that is, and because yoga is now convincingly proven to be a derivative of Vedantic sciences, and I'm from India, I know what it is all about. And they're selling it, especially the current government, is promoting it as an article of faith. So we need to develop our own tools.
Definitely.
Any comments, please?
Yes, I'll definitely discuss this with Farhana. Thank you so much for your comment and feedback. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you for calling, Dr. Jafar.
Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, that was an important point that Dr. Jafar made, that in Islam, we have the concept of reflection, muhasabah and muraqabah, self-reflection, meditation. And I think praying, salah, is a beautiful form of meditation itself. And he mentioned yoga as being a very useful tool in calming the body and the mind. What are your thoughts on that, Farhana?
Yoga is a form of exercise, and it is a form of balancing from my experience of doing yoga, it is a form of balancing your body movements, and it teaches your body to be more resilient, I feel. And again, as the doctor said, it calms your body, it relaxes it, and that's the benefits of yoga too. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about yoga. I'm not a big fan of yoga, but I have experienced that it does relax the body. So you're trying to get your body into a rest and digest state. So you, relax. And get
Some people really benefit from it. Those who practice yoga on a daily basis to calm the mind and, to help the body kind of rejuvenate, it really is a useful tool for those who practice it. In regards to muraqabah and muhasabah, self-reflection, does that play an important role in managing stress?
Yeah, so it links back to feeling connected to things. So when you reflect on yourself, you're connecting with your body, you're connecting with yourself, and that's a really important part of Islam, where you take the time to reflect on your blessings, what you're grateful for, and salah is an important element in our routine, which we do regularly in the day. In
Sorry,
terms
Farhana,
of
I'll have to interrupt you. We've got another caller on the line. Let's take this call and we'll resume to what you were saying. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Welcome to the show, sister. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Scotland.
Oh, mashallah.
I just wanted to add comments about what Doctor just said. When I was listening to mashallah, fantastic topic, very, very relevant because of COVID as well, because stress and anxieties are off the roof. Jazakallah, sisters, and Allah reward you for your good work. And yes, Doctor said, because I was just wondering when my sister Farhana was talking about the coping.
Yes.
And I'm just sitting, I'm like, I'm wondering if there's any Islamic way of coping. And so when Doctor spoke about incorporating Islamic technology and the ways of coping, I was like, yes, I think I did agree with that. And so I was just wondering, I'm not putting it out to Sister Farhan. I know she's capable of answering it, but I just wanted to also add to the and that if viewers know any coping mechanisms Islamically, I'm obviously sitting down to try and learn from it if they have any mechanisms in Islamically. Jazakallah for everything that you've done.
Thank you for calling, sister. Inshallah, we'll discuss this with Farhana. Thank you for calling once again. So, Farhana, we got a caller from Scotland, and sister was mentioning the Islamic coping strategies that can help a person with, management of anxiety and stress in general.
So the first one is Salah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can hear myself echo.
Yeah, you were talking about that just before we took the call.
Yeah. So Salah is one, and an important part of Islam is feeling connected to Allah and bringing us back to our fitrah. So it's important to engage in activities of ibadah, of worship. So Salah is one. Dua is another one as well. So the concept of seeking Allah's help, which we recite in Surah Fatiha in our Salah, and also being hopeful and positive. As a Muslim, we need to be hopeful and positive that whatever we experience is the test from Allah, and Allah doesn't bear a soul more than it can bear. I think I said that correctly. So it's important to be optimistic, to be hopeful. And one of the things that I usually encourage people that I come across is reflecting on the names of Allah and really try to understand the 99 names of Allah and what his characteristics are, and find ways to link it in with your day-to-day activities and your life. The other elements are reflecting on the 5 pillars. So you've got the shahada, the salah, the psalm, so fasting. You can make daily fasts or regular weekly fasts. Charity is an act of worship as well, and that can make us feel good as well, because we are accumulating reward in the afterlife as well as in this life. So thinking about how that might benefit others, and that in turn can improve how we feel about ourselves. So these are the different types of activities that we can engage in. Dua, there are specific du'as for anxiety, for low mood. There is a website. It was in the top of my head, but I forgot what it is. You can Google it. There are specific du'as for that, for the different ailments that we have. So do Google that. I can't remember what it is.
There's another website, sujood.com, where you can link your mood. Yeah, I was thinking of that. And beautiful points, Farhana. Like you mentioned, that even in the Quran, there is an ayah that says that in the remembrance of Allah, do hearts find peace. And supplication, there's a hadith about it, that supplication is the armor of a believer. And you made an important point that Islam teaches us to not lose hope, to have that, positivity, no matter what adversity we are going through, what trials and tribulations come our way. We have to hold on to faith and being positive, and that really does help in going through the difficult times. Talking about Salah, Farhana, Dr. Jafar called and he mentioned about muraqaba and muhasaba. What would you like to say about self-reflection? How does that help a person in calming down?
I was going to go back to that as well. One form of or one coping strategy that I use is self-reflection. And when I'm going to link this back to Salah and Dua as well. So in Salah, a lot of people might complain or might report that they struggle to have khushu in Salah. So a part of self-reflection is actually understanding what you're saying. I know what we say in Salah is in Arabic, so some people might not understand the Arabic, and I think a solution for that is understanding the translation of it. And as you're reading it, understand what you are saying to Allah. In that moment when you are praying, when you're offering salah, you are speaking to Allah at that time. You're connecting with Him. And if you know Allah, or if you understand Allah more through the 99 names and through reading Quran, you will start understanding yourself. And it's so important to understand yourself, because you will be able to have an insight in how you respond in certain situations. And that's why taking that time to self-reflect is important. And by self-reflecting, it's important to look at what blessings Allah has given us, even through just by looking outside the window and seeing the beauty, the creation of Allah. Another element of self-reflection is journaling. So really taking that time out in your day-to-day week and day-to-day life to write down what's running through your mind, reflecting on yourself, any responses, how you react in situations, even if it's negative. It's important to be aware of these things about yourself. So self-reflection is an important part in how we carry out ourselves day to day. And as I mentioned, in Salah and reading Quran, tadabbur, so reflecting upon what you're saying, what you're reading, is really, really important. And I don't think a lot of Muslims, or a lot of people in general, don't spend much time on themselves. And as Muslims, there is an emphasis on helping others. And alhamdulillah, we have a very, really, admirable nation who really helps one another out. And I guess we reflect, as a ummah, we're like one body. So if one part of the body hurts, the other part of the body hurts. So it's important that we help each other out, but we also help ourselves out. And our body, our mind has a right over ourselves. And Allah has gifted this body, this mind to us. Are we taking care of it? And we should be taking care of it ourselves first, I believe, before helping another person out, because you don't want to transfer any form of negativity or anything that's harboring within yourself to others. You kind of want to reflect on that first before sharing that with others. So it's important to bear that in mind. And self-care, I'm going to emphasize this, is really, really important. And self-reflection is a part of self-care.
And our religion also teaches us that one who understands his nafs, his psyche, his self, understands Allah. So self-reflection is really key. And also because we're talking about stress and anxiety, and sometimes people don't pay attention to how they react to certain stresses in life. There are certain things which are, beyond our control, but then there are certain things that we can control to an extent. And it depends on how we react to certain things and events in life, what our response is like. And that will help us in understanding our own self and where we need to work on. So we mentioned about some healthy and some unhealthy coping strategies. If you could just briefly talk about that, Farhana.
So healthy coping strategies.
Yeah.
So everyone has different types of coping strategies. We know that as Muslims, we do things in the realms of halal, and steer away from those that are clearly haram. So our strategies will be linked with how we cope physically, spiritually, so including activities that nourish our spirituality, our faith, our iman. Socially as well, we're social beings. Allah didn't say that we should be all alone. We work with one another. We work as a unit, as an ummah, and also psychologically. So thinking positively about ourselves, our others, and of Allah as well. So I can't mention what the coping strategies are, but it's important to bear in mind what coping strategies are using to nourish all these different arenas. And in terms of unhealthy coping strategies, it's important to make 70 excuses for our fellow brothers and sisters. Everyone goes through a difficult time, and everyone is going to fall into sin or mistakes. It's inevitable. It's important to ask Allah for forgiveness. Forgive yourself. Istighfar is really, really important with our day and age right now and in the past. So it's important to bear that in mind, as well as continuing to improve yourself to get closer to Allah, and understand and be mindful of the bigger purpose that we have. So I'm not going to go into the unhealthy strategies, but it's important to understand that everyone has a reason for developing an unhealthy coping strategy. And if you feel like you are, it's important to seek the help either through counseling or therapy or speaking to a trusted person, because we know that some unhealthy coping strategies are very stigmatized, and it's quite hard to talk about it. So it's important to talk to someone who you trust, who you can confide in, and address it.
Someone who's not gonna judge you.
Yeah. And it's quite easy to judge. So it's important to go to someone who you trust, when you're going through these difficulties. And you know yourself better than...
Of course. Talking about unhealthy coping mechanisms, some people, they form addictions, they start substance abuse and, things like that. We have a very interesting question from our brother that's just come in, and he's saying a lot of men, they love to eat meat, and eating can be another way of managing stress. And when I say eating, it means overeating or eating things that you shouldn't consume a lot on a daily basis. Is this stress management or stress eating?
It could be a coping mechanism of managing stress. So overeating can be a way of comfort. And in the short term, that might be helpful for the individual, but in the long term, the consequences of overeating or eating a certain type of food regularly can have a physical toll on your body. So it can go both ways. You can overeat or you can undereat. And that's a common symptom of depression. So what I'm trying to say is it's a coping strategy in itself. And I guess you can be mindful of that by recording how much you eat, and if that eating habit changes over certain periods of times that are stressful and not stressful. So I'm hoping I answered the question. I'm not sure if I was supposed to answer it in a specific way.
No, and thank you, Farhana, because this is pretty common. Some people, when they're feeling anxious or they're under stress, they tend to lose their appetite. And then we see people who start comfort eating, or they start drinking a lot of coffee or sweets just to kind of cope with the stress that they're experiencing. And some people fail to understand that these are coping strategies that they're using, but they not necessarily be healthy.
Just don't worry, Sarah. Just quickly, with coffee and foods that are quite stimulating like chocolate, it's important to be aware of how that might have an impact on your body. So I'll give a personal example for myself. I had coffee after such a long time during a lecture, and I developed like anxiety, like intense anxiety symptoms. So it's important to be aware of your diet and how that can have a physiological effect on your body, whether it's going to induce anxiety, and if it's going to keep you up. I can't have chocolate before 8 p.m. otherwise I'm going to be up at night, or tea. So that's caffeine. So it's important to be aware of your body and the effects of what you put into your body as well.
There are so many factors that lead to stress and the feeling of anxiousness. what happens, Farhana, if we don't deal with it at the right time? If it gets to a point when, yeah,
it can escalate in terms of impacting your relationships, in terms of the different areas of your life, such as withdrawing yourself from people, withdrawing yourself from pleasurable activities, either if it's private activities or social leisure activities. It can impact your employment. We know that in the UK, employment rates for people of color is not that great, and mental health difficulties is on the rise, and it's probably more common in communities that are a minority group. So it's important to address it sooner rather than later. There's also research that shows that a lot of people of color tend to come into contact with mental health services when they're really, really chronically distressed. At the point of what solution is there now, because it's been going on for so long. So it's important to catch it when it first happens and then address it there. Find solutions there rather than wait until you get really, really unwell. And at that point, it might be a bit difficult to find some solutions. There are solutions because Allah has provided us solutions for everything.
No doubt.
So it's important to just be mindful of that and be more aware of yourself in order to find the right treatment. I feel like I've digressed a bit.
No, you just mentioned mindfulness. Tell us something quickly about it, because we don't have much time left, but how important is mindfulness in dealing with daily stress?
So mindfulness is a concept that is being aware of your present moment without judging it, looking at it quite curiously. And ways you can be mindful as a Muslim is, again, through salah, connecting with Allah, being mindful of what you're saying, mindful of what you're eating, mindful of what you're doing. And by mindful, it could be quite of a jargon term, but it's just being present. That's what it is, being present. What is happening right now? And kind of processing that slowly. In salah, tadabbur, reflecting what you're saying, just feeling really connected to the present moment. Even with nature, like, you might want to step out in front of a park or your garden, walk barefoot and really feel what this feels like. Really immerse yourself in nature, in the beauty and the creation of Allah, and that can in itself help to give that space between the stress and yourself. And hopefully, inshallah, that can help with kind of managing your mental well-being.
Does gratitude help in managing stress and anxiety?
Yes, so that links in with our thought patterns, and that's a way of thinking positively. And there is a treatment called cognitive behavioral therapy, which addresses thoughts or unhelpful thoughts, let's say. So it challenges it in a way to look at it from a different perspective, and at times it could be seeing it from a positive lens rather than a negative lens. So, for example, you might have had experiences that were negative, and that developed into an unhelpful negative thought, perhaps. So with this therapy, you learn how to see it from a different perspective. And gratitude is actually a type of treatment where you find things that you're grateful for. And there is an exercise that some therapists use, whereby they ask their clients to think of 3 things that they're grateful for every day. And again, in Islam, it's really important to find things that you're grateful for, because again, this world, this dunya, our bodies, our everything is a gift from Allah. How are we cherishing and appreciating that gift that Allah has given us?
Your final words of wisdom, because we only have 3 minutes left.
My final words of wisdom. That's a really hard one to put in a nutshell. But I like to say that it's, everyone is going through a difficult time, regardless of what social state we are in or what's happening around us. And Allah is with you throughout everything. He is testing you, and He knows your capabilities. Keep going, keep persevering, forgive yourself, forgive others if you can as well, and really do take care of yourself. You deserve the time to place yourself as someone who's important, and be mindful of your sleeping patterns, your eating habits, your routine, in terms of taking care of yourself. And if you can take care of others, then alhamdulillah. But if you're going through a difficult period, really, really take care of yourself, and do things that you enjoy doing. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Farhana. Jazakumullah khair for that valuable, insightful conversation that you had today. And I'm sure the viewers must have found it really insightful. Just to wrap everything up, if your stress or anxiety does not respond to these management techniques, or if you feel that either stress or anxiety are affecting your day-to-day functioning, your mood, consider talking to a mental health professional about this, who can help you understand what you're experiencing and provide you with additional coping tools. The whole idea behind this program is to spread the awareness about mental health issues and to encourage people to seek professional help without feeling ashamed of themselves or blaming themselves. Just be kind to yourself, and help is out there. Inspirited Minds is a fantastic organization out there, which is a faith-based mental health charity. And people like Farhana are there to provide you with that kind of support whenever you need it. Inshallah, we'll meet you again next Saturday with another fantastic topic on mental health. Till then, be kind to yourself and look after your mental health. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.